What if the greatest economic collapse in modern history wasn't an accident? What if the crash of 1929, the one that destroyed millions of lives, broke families, and reshaped the 20th century, had been planned, step by step, by a handful of men who already knew what was coming? Sounds insane, but hold on. Because what I'm about to show you isn't a theory. It is historical record, hiding in plain sight, in the Federal Reserve's own reports and in letters exchanged between Wall Street banks. And the scariest part? The same mechanism that triggered the 1929 collapse still exists today, just under new names: global liquidity, derivatives, open market operations. The labels changed, not the essence. While you're watching food prices rise, rent double and your paychecks shrink, remember, the game never stopped. It just went digital, faster, quieter, invisible. Before we dive into this web, tell me, where are you watching from? And if you want the unfiltered truth about how money really works, subscribe now, because what's coming next will change how you see the entire modern economy. Here's what the official story says. In 1929, the stock market went too high, driven by speculation, optimism, and cheap credit. Then one day, the bubble popped. End of story, right? Wrong. The real machine started turning in 1913 with the creation of the Federal Reserve System, the central bank of the United States. Publicly, its mission was to stabilize the financial system. But its real function? To control liquidity, credit, and the cost of money. In the 1920s, the Fed kept interest rates artificially low, around 3.5%, flooding Wall Street with cheap credit. The result? Millions of Americans began buying stocks on margin. UD put down 10% and borrow the rest. It seemed magical, profits were easy, until someone turned off the tap. Sound familiar? Today they call it quantitative tightening. In 1928, the Fed began reversing liquidity, raising rates to curb speculation. But who got the heads up first? The New York investment banks. Morgan, Rockefeller, Kuhn Loeb, National City Bank, all started liquidating positions months before the crash. Meanwhile, the public was urged to keep buying. Newspapers, conveniently funded by those same banks, when proclaimed, "The American market is unbeatable." Sound familiar? In 2008, they called it subprime. In 2020, emergency liquidity. In 2023, soft landing. History repeats, just with fancier suits and Excel spreadsheets. Then came October 24, 1929, Black Thursday. Sell orders hit automatically. Margin calls exploded. In just 48 hours, $30 billion vanished, the equivalent of an entire year of U.S. industrial output. And who bought those stocks back for pennies on the dollar? The very same banks that had sold them at the top. Sound familiar? Today, when markets crash, central banks rush in to buy bonds, stocks, and corporate debt. They call it stability intervention, but it's the same trick as 1929, just with computers and digital trillions. Now here's the part most history books skip. Between 1927 and 1929, the New York Fed, led by Benjamin Strong, orchestrated something called the Cross-Liquidity Agreements. It was a silent pact between the Fed, the Bank of England, and Germany's Reichsbank. Officially, it was international monetary cooperation. In practice, it was the first global currency manipulation network. Records show billions in gold and credit transfers between New York and London, artificially adjusting the value of the dollar and the pound. Meanwhile, the U.S. market inflated faster than ever. When Benjamin Strong died in 1928, the Fed's internal balance shifted. A more moralist faction, led by George Harrison, decided to slam on the brakes. It was like cutting oxygen in a room full of gas. Within a year, the system imploded. And who profited from the wreckage? The very banks sitting on the Federal Reserve Board. You won't believe whose name shows up in the confidential 1930 reports. The receipt is wilder than you think. The hidden mechanism that orchestrated the greatest economic heist in history. Let's break down the machine. The Federal Reserve didn't fail in 1929. It did exactly what it was designed to do: redistribute wealth, consolidate banking power, and create government dependency. The system used a triple trigger, cascading credit. In 1928, banks lent out $8 billion in margin loans. That was 20% of the entire US GDP. It looked like growth. It was pure leverage. Liquidity manipulation. The Fed, through the New York Bank, injected and drained credit weekly. A 2% squeeze on bank reserves could vaporize $1 billion in Wall Street capital. Insider information. The Fed's directors were simultaneously executives at commercial and investment banks. An inside game, what we'd now call institutionalized moral hazard. And here's where the primary mechanism of the conspiracy comes in. The parallel liquidity market. A network of secret repos and acceptance bills that allowed Wall Street to fund off-balance sheet operations. In modern terms, it was the grandfather of the shadow banking system. These transactions were invisible to the public, but they guaranteed private liquidity in exchange for repackaged collateral, debt securities, mortgages, export notes. A perpetual cycle of phantom credit. By 1928, the value of these instruments surpassed $26 billion, 3 times the US gold reserves. And no one audited a thing. When the Fed started tightening liquidity, the shadow system collapsed first. Banks began forcing liquidations, triggering a domino effect. The pyramid fell, and American families picked up the tab. Now look at the parallel. In 2008, the same mechanism resurfaced under a new name, CDOs and credit swaps. In 2020, they called it emergency repo operations. And today, the Fed injects $120 billion a month in digital liquidity to keep the same house of cards standing. Example, in 1929, JP Morgan was the biggest winner of the collapse. It bought devalued assets at a 70% discount. In 2008, the same JP Morgan bought Bear Stearns with direct help from the Fed. In 2023, the cycle repeated with the rescue of First Republic Bank. Coincidence? Or a self-regenerating system of financial concentration? The Federal Reserve acts as the bank of banks, not the people's bank. It doesn't represent the economy, it represents the creditors. And the 1929 crash was the perfect prototype of fiduciary control. The consequences? 9,000 banks failed by 1933. Unemployment hit 25% of the workforce. Industrial production fell 47%. But US gold was centralized in Fort Knox, and the Fed's power tripled. And here's the big reveal. The 1929 crash wasn't a mistake. It was a successful experiment in total economic control. The Federal Reserve discovered it could destroy real wealth and create political dependency by adjusting just one variable: liquidity. Almost a century later, nothing's changed. It's just faster. Algorithms replaced brokers, derivatives replaced gold, and crises replaced wars. Today, the same Federal Reserve that once promised stability holds an $8.5 trillion balance sheet and manipulates 95% of all global liquidity, directly or indirectly. Each interest rate swing is a worldwide economic earthquake. And us? We're the extras in a play first rehearsed in 1929. The current bubble, public debt, student loans, climate derivatives, is just a new version of the same script. And when the next crash comes, don't expect explanations. Expect bailouts, stimulus, emergency interventions. That's the modern code for wealth transfer. The truth is simple but brutal. The system doesn't want you to understand how it works. Because the moment you do, you're free. But the clock is ticking. And the next collapse, digital, automated, global, that will be the biggest one yet. The only question is, which side of the equation will you be on? If you've made it this far, it's because you're chasing unfiltered truth. So tell me, do you think the system can still be fixed? Or was it built to break? And of course, subscribe. We may be wiser now, or just walking the same road in fancier clothes.